All right, welcome to the Vegas Insider channel here on YouTube. I am Kevin Rogers. A little bit of technical difficulty with Stephanie Otey, but we'll get her back on coming up in just a moment. So we will try to hook up with her. And we do have Kyle Hunter on the show today. Kyle Hunter, who has been on many times. He is an Ohio native, and we're going to bring him on now. Kyle, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, good. And we'll hook back up with Stephanie coming up in just a moment. But obviously, a lot to digest from the brackets coming out a few days ago. And what were some of your initial thoughts when you saw the brackets come out?
My initial thoughts, Gonzaga deserving of the number one overall seed, but they didn't get the easiest path. I would say Kansas, a team that I wasn't expecting to put in my Final Four, but I'm not really sure who I'm going to put there instead of Kansas, honestly. I've looked more at betting value than I have filling out brackets thus far, but I think Kansas got an easy path, and I was surprised that a team like Michigan didn't have to play in the first four, and Indiana does. So that kind of stood out to me as far as ones that were interesting. And then also I like some of the 4-13 matchups. We usually say the 5-12 games are interesting, but Illinois, Chattanooga, Arkansas, Vermont, Providence, South Dakota State, even Arkansas or Akron and UCLA. I think those 4-13 matchups are especially interesting this year.
Well, the one you mentioned too, I thought was interesting, Kyle, was that Indiana-Michigan thing where Indiana beat Michigan in the Big Ten tournament. Mm-hmm. Now, I get that the committee's not going to just say, well, that's the tiebreaker, but why is Indiana relegated to the extra game against Wyoming tonight where Michigan plays Colorado State, a team out of the mountain, both play Mountain West teams, but why Michigan, in a sense, got the break when towards the end of the season they weren't that great? And you had the Juwan Howard situation too.
Yeah, I mean, obviously being a Buckeyes fan, I'm not a huge fan of Michigan. I do think they have a good chance of winning their first game there against Colorado State. But Michigan was 17-14, and they didn't have to play in the first four, which I thought was pretty interesting. Indiana, played really good at the end of the season. It took a Jordan Bohannon banked in three to beat them in that game, and Iowa was certainly playing very well. So I think Indiana got a bit of a downside there. I understand why Rutgers had to play in the first four because of their bad losses earlier in the season, but Indiana, certainly surprising they had to go there.
Now we're going to bring up Stephanie Otey. Steph?
We got the mic working.
There she is. She's there. You know what happened is the new apartment you moved to.
Or no, he just gave some accolades to, well, a mention to the Buckeyes is always good luck on my half. So, and fading Michigan. But yeah, I agree. They do have a better path lined up for them. Interesting to see how that goes. I did want to ask you though, Kyle, when you look at the Big Ten, even the West Coast, one of the longest debates running in college basketball is when a team from the West Coast or the Big Ten will they win it all? It has, a little bit of a fever pitch the last couple of seasons with the Big Ten appearing to be the best conference in the sport, and then the West Coast producing multiple national title contenders, but we don't see it come to fruition. Do you think that there's a chance of that happening this year?
Well, I mean, I think the Big Ten's last time was 1999-2000 with Mateen, Cleaves, and Michigan State. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Pac-12 was 1997 or something with Arizona winning. So it's interesting that they've had so many good teams and haven't been able to do it. The Big Ten's been so close so many times. Arizona and the Pac-12 certainly has a shot this year. It'll be interesting to see if Kerr Kriisa can play in the NCAA tournament because I think he is pretty important to them. But the Big Ten, they have several teams that are capable, but I don't think any of them have a really easy path. I'm a Big Ten fan, obviously, so I'm understanding of the situation that Ohio State's in. Ohio State's not good enough to win anything in the NCAA tournament here. But, Illinois, I think a team with an upside. They're a 4 seed, but they're capable of making a run. Purdue hasn't looked great, but they're certainly capable. I know some people have Iowa going really deep into this tournament. I'm concerned about Iowa's defense maybe not being good enough. So there are plenty of teams out there that are capable in the Big Ten, but I don't know. I think that I'm hesitant to say the Big Ten will win it this year because they haven't for so many years. I hope that they can break that streak, but I don't think the odds are in their favor per se.
Right. Looking at the paths forward and how the conference championships finished out, what seeds they get. Wisconsin looks like they got a good spot. Michigan, we talked about that. In the Big Ten, who do you think has the best path forward? Who has the most likely opportunity to move forward just based off of their seeding?
So based on where they're at, I like Wisconsin. Wisconsin's chances. However, I mean, I would say Colgate's a bit of a tricky first game for them. Colgate's a team that's really well coached. They shoot the ball very well. Remember, Colgate gave Arkansas a ton of trouble last year, and Arkansas had athleticism that they really couldn't handle. Wisconsin doesn't have that same level of athleticism, and Davis is a bit banged up, so that concerns me a bit. I still think that Illinois is capable of making a run. I don't love that they'd have to play Arizona. I think Arizona's a really good team, so not a huge fan of that. I don't think Michigan State's very good as a 7 seed, so I don't think Izzo's going to make one of his customary runs in March. Just not the same team they've had in the past. Purdue's upside's still really high. I don't love that they're up against Kentucky down there. So Iowa has a good spot in the bracket. I mean, to be honest, Iowa playing either Providence or South Dakota State in the second round, you would think Iowa should reach the Sweet 16 here. And then Kansas and Iowa, Iowa certainly has a shot to win a game like that. I'm just concerned about Iowa's defense. So, Iowa could make a run. It wouldn't surprise me. Wisconsin, if Davis is healthy, if he's good to go completely, then Wisconsin has a chance of making a run also.
Yeah, Iowa getting the Big Ten. So in history, there have only been 4 national champions who participated in the conference tournament that didn't first win either of their league's regular season or postseason title. Villanova, 1985, Kansas, 88, Connecticut, 2014, Duke, 2015. Those are the only exceptions. Do you think there will be an exception this year?
Oh man, that's a tough one. You kind of put me on the spot with that one. That one's a little bit tricky. I'm trying to think of who I think has the best chances. I mean, Gonzaga obviously won everything in the WCC. Arizona won everything. Villanova got to the Big East title and won it. I guess Duke won the regular season. So, I don't think there'll be another one of those because I think some of the teams that I mentioned there will probably be one of the teams that win it. Gonzaga has a pretty good path this year. I'm hesitant to pick Gonzaga because they've been so close so many times but haven't gotten it. Having said that, Chet Holmgren gives them a great defensive presence. It's hard to bet against Gonzaga, and they're deserving as a favorite. So, Gonzaga would be one that I think has a really good shot at winning it all. Kentucky, a team that I think is capable of winning it all as a 2 seed. I think Purdue has the upside potential to win it all. Baylor, if they were healthier, I think would have a good shot, but I'm worried about the injuries for Baylor.
Mm-hmm. And lots of people love talking about the 12s and the 5s, looking at the way those were seeded out. We know that, that 12 and 5, that's a big matchup. In 31 of the last 36 years, 12 seed has won at least one first round game. 2013, 2014, there were 3 12 seeds to win. So when you're looking at your bracket this year, do you have any of the 12 seeds winning? At this time around, all of the 5 seeds are favored, but do you have any 12 seeds pulling off the upset?
Well, I mean, Richmond against Iowa, I can't imagine Iowa losing to Richmond. Iowa hasn't done very well in this tournament, but Iowa is so much better than Richmond. I think Richmond's probably a bit too highly seeded, and Iowa, you could argue, probably should have been a 4 seed with the way they were playing at the end of the season. So I'm going to throw that one out. I think that Houston hasn't really beaten anybody, if we're being honest here. You look at Houston, the analytics love them, but who has Houston beaten that's any good? They beat Memphis. Memphis is, an okay team, but you look through the rest of the season, Houston really hasn't beaten anybody that good. UAB could certainly pull that upset. New Mexico State and UConn. I think UConn's a pretty good team, so I'm not going to pick New Mexico State to win that. New Mexico State plus the points, maybe, in that one. And then St. Mary's will play the winner of Wyoming and Indiana. I think if Indiana wins that game, Indiana certainly has a shot against St. Mary's. I like Indiana's upside with Jackson Davis down low. I do think there will be a 12 seed win this year. And don't be surprised if we get 1 or 2 of the 13 seeds that win, because honestly,
just getting into that. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I probably jumped the gun there on that one, but I think the 13 seeds have just as good a shot as the 12 seeds this year.
At least one 13 seed has won a game in the tournament in the last 10. in 10 of the last 13 years. That's pretty big. Just last year, 2 number 13 seeds pull out the first round. So when you look at the 13 seeds, how is this one lining up for you?
Well, I mean, South Dakota State's only an underdog of 1.5 or 2 points. And, it'll be a matchup of Watson and Wilson on the inside for South Dakota State against Providence. Providence has been extremely lucky all season. If we're being honest, this Providence team is a good team, but, you can't win games in double overtime and by 1 or 2 points every single game. I think South Dakota State has a really good chance of winning that game, honestly. So there's one that I think will probably happen. And then as far as the others, Chattanooga, I know some people like them against Illinois. I don't love that because I think Illinois has such a high upside. I think Illinois probably wins that game. Arkansas and Vermont is a real possibility as well. Vermont is a tremendous offensive team. I think they'll give Arkansas some significant problems. You see the spread of only 5 points in that. So the odds makers know that Vermont's a good team. And then, UCLA and Akron, probably Akron doesn't have enough to beat UCLA. I think Johnny Juzang and company will probably be too much for them. But as we look at the 13s and 4s, I think we could see another year where we see 2 13s win again.
Yeah, diving deeper into that South Dakota State Providence game, that one comes up on Thursday. It looks like it could be a Cinderella story, but South Dakota State, they own the nation's longest active winning streak. They just became the first team in history of the Summit League to run the table during the regular season and then win the conference tournament. I mean, what a run they are on. They've hit that hot streak. Sounds like you're taking them in this game, but why are you taking them to pull off the upset?
Well, I think South Dakota State's so good on offense that Providence is going to have to make some shots. South Dakota State, 44.2% from 3-point range. Really, that's insane. That's about as good as anybody has done in the last decade in college basketball. And it's not just one guy for South Dakota State. I mean, you have Bailey Shireman shooting 46.6% from 3. Charlie Easley shooting 50.5%, 46 for 91 from 3-point range. Zeke Mayo, 41.5%. This is a tremendous team. And like I said, they have Douglas Wilson on the inside. So people think of them as just shooters, but they actually have a guy on the inside in the front court that kind of is such a good passer and does a good job rebounding. They're good on the defensive boards. A lot of teams like this from these smaller conferences struggle on the defensive glass, and the bigger team that they play against, the 4 seed in this case, dominates the glass. I don't think Providence will do that against South Dakota State. Providence, the Big East is a decent conference. I don't think they're as good as they've been in past seasons. You have Villanova, you have Creighton, who's pretty good. I don't think the Big East is tremendous, so I don't think Providence has played amazing teams throughout the course of the season. And Providence, like I said, they're number 1 in luck factor at KenPom. No surprise. This is a team that's really edged through a lot of wins. South Dakota State tested themselves in the non-conference too, which I think is good. They won against Bradley, who's a pretty good team. They won against Nevada by 27 points. Had a game that was pretty close most of the way against Alabama in the non-conference. They also beat Montana State, who's in this tournament for the Big Sky. I think this South Dakota State team can score. I like their ability to put up quite a few points. And I think that Providence is overseeded as a 4 seed. So I think it kind of comes together.
Yeah, ever since that loss to Missouri State, it was in December. They go on to have 21 consecutive wins, 13 of those with double-digit wins, like by winning by 10 points. They're my favorite as the Cinderella of the tournament. Who would be your Cinderella story? Coming up from maybe a double-digit seed to go maybe to the Final Four.
So double-digit seed capable of getting to the Final Four. That's a tough one. South Dakota State, my concern for them is if they win that first game, they'd probably have to play Iowa, and I don't know if they can beat Iowa in that second game. As far as double-digit seeds that I think could make a bit of a run, I would look toward maybe a 10 or 11 seed if I'm wanting somebody that's going to make a deep run here in the tournament. Honestly, I think Michigan, I just talked about Michigan, probably should have been in the play-in game, but I think this sets up well for Michigan. Being a Buckeyes fan, I don't really like to root for Michigan, but Michigan's favored in their first game against Colorado State. And Tennessee, you're going to hear everybody talk about how Tennessee should have been a 2 seed. They're tremendous. Tennessee's a good team, but Rick Barnes has done horribly in this tournament. I mean, time and time again. And I am not betting on him to do good here. If he does, more power to him. But Rick Barnes is 1-11-1 against the spread in the last 13 NCAA tournament appearances. I think Michigan would have a shot to pull an upset against a team like Tennessee in the second game. And then would they have a chance against a Villanova? Certainly. I don't think Villanova is a dominant team. So, that's probably not the answer you were expecting from a Buckeyes fan. But I do think Michigan's capable of making a run here.
Yeah, it's hard to think of Michigan, such a powerful name in college athletics, being like an underdog Cinderella. But in this year, yeah, I definitely think that they could have that title. You mentioned Tennessee, 10th overall ranked, getting a 3rd seed. Do you think that they were the most snubbed on Selection Day?
I do think they were snubbed. Like I said, I don't like their chances of going far in the tournament because of their coach. But Kennedy Chandler's done a good job, a really quick guard there. I think that Tennessee has proven a lot throughout the course of the season, but Rick Barnes has done so poorly in March that I think that, they're just a team that's going to struggle. I will say I don't think Duke should have been a 2 seed. Duke probably a 2 seed because their name's Duke and because Coach K is in his last season here. I'm not exactly a Duke fan either, so I'm probably alienating part of the audience here. But this is a Duke team that I don't think they've really deserved to be a 2 seed based on their body of work, especially late in the season. And Stephanie, actually, I want to throw out one more, a double-digit seed that I think is capable of making a run. Loyola Chicago here. They're playing Ohio State in the first game. I'm rooting for the Buckeyes. I would think Loyola will probably win that game. But Loyola is capable of beating Villanova as well. And if they do that, they'd likely have to play a team like a Michigan or Tennessee, somebody like that. Loyola, again, capable of making a run as a double-digit seed.
Yeah, and looking at the number 2 seeds in the second weekend, in 22 of the last 24 years, at least one number 2 seed has been knocked out before the Sweet 16. Looking at the 2 seeds now, who do you think might be a victim of that this year?
I think Auburn would be my choice if I were taking a team that could get knocked out early on. I think Auburn's been a bit overrated all throughout the season. I think Bruce Pearl's done a really good job there. But Auburn, I don't think is one of the top 8 teams in the country. Villanova, obviously capable of it too. I just said Loyola as a team that I think has a chance. So those are the 2 number 2 seeds that I think are in some danger of losing right away. USC, Andy Enfield's done a really good job in the NCAA tournament. So I think if USC wins that first game against Miami, that's one that could knock off Auburn. I think if Miami wins that first game, Auburn would be a little bit safer. So Nova and Auburn would be the 2 that I'd be on upset watch for.
Yeah, and when you look at the top overall seeds since 2004, when the tournament committee started making the selection and designated someone as the number 1 overall seed, that team has gone on to win the national championship only 3 times. Florida 2007, Kentucky 2012, Louisville 2013. Do you think that we'll have that happen this year? Or are you snubbing Gonzaga?
Oh man, this is a tough one because Gonzaga has been so close so many times. Are they going to finally pull it off? I'm going to say I think they have a good chance of finally winning it. Having said that, do I feel really confident and I'd want to bet plus 280 or something on a future? I wouldn't. I don't think that plus 280 or plus 300, the prices that are out there now, are good enough for Gonzaga. I don't love betting a ton of futures, especially if it's not some underdog. But I think Gonzaga does have a pretty good path. If you look, Gonzaga would play Arkansas as a 4 seed. Or maybe UConn. I think that's a pretty decent matchup for Gonzaga. I think they probably get through that. And Duke being the 2 seed in their bracket, I think is a good thing for them because I do think Duke is a bit overrated. Texas Tech, I think, would probably be the toughest matchup for Gonzaga. So as crazy as it sounds, and I know Duke beat Gonzaga earlier this year, so don't drop it in the comments below, that Duke already beat Gonzaga. But Duke's not playing as well as they were early in the season. And Gonzaga, I think, is rounding into form pretty nicely. So I do like Gonzaga's path to the Final Four. And then they have Baylor or Kentucky there in the Final Four. I think they match up fine against them as well. Probably their toughest matchup would be in Arizona, but that'd be the final game.
Mm-hmm. Trying to shorten down to the bracket even further, getting to the Elite 8, there's usually at least one surprise. We've seen at least a 1 double-digit seed in the Elite 8 in 4 of the last 5 years. Last year we had 12-seeded Oregon State, 11-seed UCLA, and 6-seed USC. Looking at maybe those lower seeds, who do you think could make their way into the Elite Eight?
So the Elite Eight team, I'm going to go with Michigan again here. I think Michigan's capable. And
You don't sound
actually,
like a Buckeye right now.
yeah, I know. What am I doing here? Michigan is plus 380 to reach the Sweet 16 at DraftKings right now, which I think is a really good price. So, give me a little bit of time. I might be wanting to bet something like that here in a few minutes. But I think Michigan's capable of making that run. I think Loyola Chicago is capable of being the double-digit seed that reaches the Elite Eight. As far as the other ones, I don't know. Davidson is a 10 seed, but, there's no Steph Curry there like there was before. I don't think that Davidson's good enough to get there. Murray State's a team that intrigues me. They're not a double-digit seed. I'd love to see Murray State and Kentucky in that second game. I'd love that matchup just because it'd be a lot of fun. If Murray State could get back Ja Morant, that would be a heck of a game. But, I think that double-digit seed will make it again to the Elite Eight. I mean, it happens every single year. It's obviously hard to pick it out. I think the Rutgers Notre Dame winner is a tricky game for Texas Tech as well, and I think they could make a run. We've seen a first four team make a run pretty consistently as well. So, people are usually pretty quick to dismiss these first four games and say, well, the play-in game, who cares? Nobody's going to win. We've seen multiple teams from these play-in teams run pretty good, so I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, one double-digit seed making their first tournament appearance since 2017. Notre Dame, they're facing off with Rutgers tomorrow night. I know you like this game. Who are you taking for this one?
Yeah, I think I like Rutgers in this game, and I haven't bet this one yet, but this is my strong lean here. Rutgers has beaten really good teams throughout the course of the season, and you could point to their really ugly losses back in November, but what does November really matter at this point? I don't think it really matters what Rutgers did in November. It matters to me what they did here late in the season. And I know some people say, well, they got knocked off in the first game in the Big Ten tournament, but Iowa's playing tremendous right now. Iowa's been knocking everybody off. This is a Rutgers team that their upside is very high. They did win that game on the road against Wisconsin. They also, won a ton of games at home that were really impressive. I know they don't get to play at home here, but I think Rutgers could win this game here against a Notre Dame team that I believe, the ACC is pretty far down compared to what they used to be. We saw some of the teams in the ACC, Wake Forest kind of flamed out. Who are their good wins? Notre Dame. Their one really good win this season was home against Kentucky. Outside of that, it's hard to find really good wins on their schedule, where Rutgers, when they're playing their best, they beat Purdue, they beat Iowa, they won at Wisconsin, they won at home against Illinois. I think Rutgers' best is better than Notre Dame's best. And this time of the year, I tend to take the team with the higher upside. So I like Rutgers in this game.
Yeah, so as I make my bracket, I hate when I come down to the Final Four and they're always one seeds. Like, I hate when I get to that point. I'm like, I know it's not going to be that way, but that's what my bracket leads me to. But as we know, usually a number one seed, they've won more national titles than any other seed. They've won at least four. They've won four of the last four, 5 of the last 6, 7 of the last 9. Are you taking a number one seed to win it all? The numbers look good, but yeah.
Like I said, I haven't filled out my bracket yet, but my guess is I'm going to take Gonzaga to win the tournament here. I will say I hate the people who just take straight 1 seeds all the way. I have a guy in our bracket pool that every year he has all 4 1 seeds, and every single year I'm always telling my wife, I do not want this guy to win. Anybody but this guy. It's just so frustrating when somebody like that wins, because it's like, okay, yeah, you just put all the 1 seeds. I think Illinois will probably be in my Final Four, which that would be an upset, certainly. Illinois is a team with a really high upside. In fact, I was kind of looking, Illinois is plus 1,000 to reach the Final Four at DraftKings. So I think that's a good look as well. That's one that I would probably bet. And as far as another team that I think will make it, I think Kentucky will be in my Final Four. Gonzaga, Kentucky then would be the matchup, and then Illinois and Kansas probably. I don't like Kansas that much, but Kansas has an easy path. So that's probably going to be my Final Four, and then I think I will have Gonzaga winning it all.
Yeah, I have Wisconsin in mind. That's a 3, but I'm still sorting through it. I can't decide if I'm going to stick with it, but I have Arizona and Duke, with Arizona winning it. I can't stick with it, but we'll see if I do. Kevin, do you have your Final Four yet?
I do, and I agree with Kyle on two of them. I was convinced on Kentucky that seeing what Kentucky's road
I
is
have
with St.
them.
Peter's, Murray State or San Francisco, and then Texas, Virginia Tech, Purdue, Yale. I don't love Baylor. I think that Kentucky can get out of that. I like Texas Tech though, Kyle, in the Gonzaga region. Not to disparage Gonzaga, but Texas Tech has got great defensive numbers. I think they can make a run to the Final Four.
Yeah, Texas Tech is my second favorite team from that bracket, certainly. Texas Tech, the question is, how can they do away from home? Because their away from home rating is not very good. They obviously don't get to play in Lubbock here. I think Texas Tech, the question is if they make enough jump shots. Their defense is so good. They should be in every single game. Texas Tech unders are always something I'm looking at. I'm a totals person. So I'll be looking for some Texas Tech unders, and I hope they do make a deep run because that gives me several chances to handicap their games and maybe have some value on unders with Texas Tech as we go throughout. And I was kind of looking at these as we were talking as well. I like San Diego State at BetMGM plus 600 to reach the Sweet 16. I just said I think Kansas Final Four. But Kansas is certainly capable to be knocked off by somebody. And if San Diego State gets past Creighton, San Diego State's defense is capable of making that a game. Kind of like, Kevin, San Diego State and Texas Tech, I believe, are ranked number 1 and number 2 in defense in the country this year. So those teams that have such a good defense are in every single game. San Diego State's offense can be pretty ugly. So they want that to be an ugly game, certainly, if they get there.
You're mentioning some good defenses, San Diego State, Texas Tech, Gonzaga. Are you taking the totals on some of those games?
San Diego State and Creighton, I would want to bet an under, but 120, guys, 120 is ridiculous. It's hard to take under 120. I don't think I can do it. Gonzaga at 150 in the first game. I'm just scared of how many Gonzaga could score on Georgia State. Georgia State is not going to be able to stop Gonzaga. I think Gonzaga can probably name their score. I wouldn't want to bet an over there, but Texas Tech under against Montana State is a strong lean of mine. I haven't bet it yet, but that's one that I might end up taking. I just don't see Montana State being able to score very many on Texas Tech. In the Big Sky, they've seen no defenses even close to what Texas Tech has.
Now, Kyle, before we let you go, I have one question on your thoughts on how you handicap the tournament. Now, you mentioned Iowa, a team that won the Big Ten. They got a lot of momentum now. Do you like riding? I'm not talking about the mid-majors that had to win to get in. Like teams in the bigger conferences. Baylor got knocked out early in the Big 12. Kentucky got knocked out relatively early in the SEC. Do you like taking the teams that maybe had a little more rest, not as much wear and tear, or the teams that are riding the momentum, like in Iowa, like a Virginia Tech, who had to, in a sense, win the ACC to get into the big dance?
Well, I usually kind of like to go against what the public thinks. The public likes to say, this team is red hot. So I guess I would lean more toward teams that didn't just make some huge run. And the public's done pretty bad in March Madness, too. There are some pretty strong trends for just fading the public when it comes to March Madness. I believe throughout the NCAA tournament, just taking the team that gets less than 50% of the bets on it is something like 55% in the last decade against the spread. So I would tend to say I would want to bet against a team like Iowa. The problem with Iowa in this one is betting against a team like that is I don't know who's going to beat Iowa in the first couple games. I don't see their matchup as being a negative, but I tend to think that I want to go against what public perception is. And public perception is usually recency bias. What has the team just most recently done? So in general, I would bet against those teams more often than I would bet on them.
Well, Kyle, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Kyle Hunter Picks. You can find him on Vegas Insider. Always a great job with college basketball, totals expert, and also got the sides too. College football was amazing this past year. Kyle, thank you so much for the time, and best of luck with everything this week.
Thanks. Enjoy March Madness, guys.
All right. There is Kyle Hunter, that's your guy. Ohio State's own, loves Ohio State. But he doesn't have a lot
You
of faith in
couldn't
them,
tell from
Stephanie.
this. Yeah, you couldn't tell from today, but he is a Buckeye.
He's a Buckeye, but hey, that Loyola Chicago matchup in the first round, Loyola, who was in the Final Four
I
a few
said it
years
when everyone
ago.
said I was a bad fan. I fade Ohio State in hoops. They're not reliable for me. And I became a bad fan because of it, I guess. But I'm fine with betting against Ohio State in basketball, especially in the tournament.
But here's the question, though, and this kind of goes back to like Michigan State when they used to be like a 2 seed. You never trust Michigan State when they're a 2, but when they're a 7, they make a run. Ohio State had the high expectations last year in the tournament, got bounced early. Now the expectations really aren't there, and they're playing a team, Loyola Chicago, who's been there. Granted, I know different guys, different coach, because their coach went to Oklahoma this past year. But maybe now because the expectations aren't as high, this could be a time to jump on them.
I can't when it comes to
You can't
Ohio
do it.
They're just so unreliable. Yeah, I mean, I can see them getting through the first round, but not after that. And I think it might be narrow too. So
they're going to make a deep run because you have no faith in them.
Well, okay, so when you fade Ohio State, usually that works in football, but in basketball, it's just you kind of just prepare for it. It's not like, oh, they're gonna have a chip on their shoulder and then come through. It's like it's expected. And so when they do well, it's like, yay, but like I'm not gonna get my hopes up. I'm just gonna like be grateful for the win, but I'm not gonna like get pumped for the next round because we're used to it.
Well, and you got Villanova up next potentially. So that's hey, look, you're not going to play all cupcakes the whole way. It's going to be tough, every round.
If they're healthy, then I don't know. Again, if they're up against Villanova, maybe within 5 points, but that's the most I'll give them.
And you are so down on them.
Not in football. In football,
I know, but I'm saying just in basketball, though. I think you're just salty about what happened last year, and you can't I think they got a shot here. I think because we're so down on them. Look, losing to Nebraska is one thing. Now the expectations are different.
Well, I guess you're right because I faded them one year in like my family bracket pool, and my aunt, most of my family is in Columbus, Ohio, so they're all going Buckeyes. So like my family that doesn't really follow basketball, they'll go all in on Buckeyes, and I fade them, and then they get further, and so everyone in my family moves on. But since I didn't take them, so maybe that I have beef in that aspect too. So betting on Ohio State or betting against them, it just never. I always get the opposite result.
Which Big Ten team do you think goes the furthest? Which Big Ten team goes the furthest, you think?
I mean, I have as of now, I'm not gonna keep them in there, but Wisconsin, I like their path. Michigan, I think that they have a good path too, but I feel like they'll flop at some point. Wisconsin, I have at least going up against Arizona right now, but that's to be determined. Because
Wisconsin has the what's it called? Wisconsin has the games in Milwaukee. That really helps them.
Yeah, and then so I have them going up against LSU. I know that's a tough one for me too, but yeah, and then I have the Kansas beating them. I have them beating Kansas, but yeah, I think that out of all of them, I liked Illinois a lot in the Big Ten tournament, and then they didn't go far there, but I faded Purdue just like you did. I have Texas beating them. In the Big Ten, I'm trying to see what I have Ohio State losing in the first round with an upset.
Well, I think Purdue will beat Yale. I'm not going to go as far to say Yale's going to beat them, but after that, I don't know.
Yeah, because what I tend to do is whenever I go through my bracket, I choose the favorite or the higher seed. I'm like, I don't want to have all these higher seeds. So then I have to go back and be like, okay, where can I see the upset happening? You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, I think Yale could beat Ohio State. So that's when I have to backtrack. When I have too many of the top seeds winning, I have to go and be like, okay, I can't have the perfect bracket, of every every team that's supposed to win winning. So I backtrack and choose my upsets because now I look at my Final Four and I don't love it. So I have to still do some filtering and see where we could be surprised.
I think there's been, if I'm not mistaken, I think one time we've had 4 1 seeds in the Final Four. I think it's once.
One time.
So that's why I got to be careful. Yeah. There's just a thing to say that.
Two. Usually it's
happen.
2.
I have 2 also. I like Arizona and Kansas.
Yeah, I have Arizona.
Who's your other one?
So I had Duke, and I'm taking them out to have Gonzaga.
Okay.
But I'm gonna have Kentucky beating them to play.
Duke will be interesting because it's Coach K's last hurrah and all this other stuff. But again, like Kyle said, that are we ranking Duke too high because of their name and not because of what? I mean, Duke right now is number 12 as far as in the Ken Palm. So if they're 12, you have 1, 2, 3, 4 teams ahead of them that were not 2 seeds. So is that just your name?
That where they choose the big name.
Yeah, I mean, Duke's below Texas Tech. They're below UCLA. They're below Tennessee. They're below Houston. So that's
you have them up against Michigan State and then Texas Tech? Or do you have Michigan State losing? Because that was a 7 and 10 seed that I was a little iffy on.
Davidson's interesting because Davidson's not far in North Carolina. Those games are in Greenville, South Carolina. They're not. Davidson will probably travel nicely because they're like really close. They're a stone's throw away. And Davidson was still. It goes back to that argument. Davidson was the best team in the Atlantic 10. Michigan State's the 6th or 7th best team in the Big Ten. So the Atlantic 10 is still not like it's a decent league. So what does that mean? That can Davidson knock them off? I mean, I probably lean towards Davidson just because, I mean, they proved themselves. They lost the Atlantic 10 championship to Richmond a few days ago.
I have their stats lined up, and in like most categories, it looks like Davidson's better. I mean,
yeah,
they're averaging more points a game. Well, they're averaging less opposing points per game. I mean, it's all about matchups, but I mean, looking at just their numbers, it'll be competitive, I think. What's that spread at?
Michigan State's laying 1.5. Let me see if it's still that. Because all these spreads, I feel like some have flipped. They are playing on Friday. Yeah, scroll it down. Michigan State's laying 1. That's a 9:40 game. It's the late game there in Greenville.
They're higher in field goal shooting, 3-point shooting. I mean, yeah, that'll be a tough one. But either way, I have that team losing in the next round, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, if Duke got to the Sweet 16, I'm not going to be totally shocked, but I just don't know how far they go. That they got.
But that's like as I look at teams that could pull off the upset. I think that's a team that people could upset. But if I have. I don't think it'd be Michigan State to do it. I don't think it'd be Davidson. I think Texas Tech or Bama.
Oh yeah, and even Texas Tech beats Duke. I mean, Texas Tech's a better team than them. So,
or do you think Bama? I mean, I think Texas Tech will beat Bama, but do you think Bama could beat Duke?
Bama is so all over the place because they're 3-point shooting that Alabama beat 3 teams this year that went to the Final Four last year, but yet they had some really questionable losses. It's like, it depends on your shooting that, it's got to go in. Alabama doesn't make their shots. And you say it for anybody, but Alabama can have some horrible shooting nights. But if they get hot, they could make a run. That's just what it's all about with them.
Which division do you think has it the hardest? I think South. I think the South, because I think Tennessee going up against Arizona doesn't help them out. That's another reason why I fade Ohio State. Illinois.
Yeah,
that's why I like Illinois, but not in the South.
Arizona, Houston, Illinois, Tennessee, Villanova. It's really strong. I mean, I don't like the East. I don't like the East at all. The East is kind of weak. I mean, you still have some decent teams, but I think the East is not that great. and even that Midwest.
I was looking at Midwest. Do you think Kansas or Iowa can upset Kansas?
Sure. I mean, seriously, yeah. I think once you get to that point of that Sweet 16, anything's possible as long as you have like 15s there. I don't see them. I don't see upsets. I don't see Iowa beating Kansas as an upset. I think Iowa can beat them.
See, that's
Wouldn't
why
shock
if a Big Ten team gets in, I think it's going to be through the Midwest. I don't think it's going to be in the South.
Iowa, Wisconsin. Yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's got a road. They can definitely beat LSU or Iowa State. LSU's a mess. They had their coaching change. I don't think Iowa State is that great. And there's no reason why Wisconsin couldn't beat Auburn or USC or Miami in the next rounds. And then Wisconsin play Kansas. Wisconsin's an odd team because Wisconsin can make the Final Four or they can get bounced in that first game by Colgate.
I know. But that's why I think Elite Eight. But I don't know. See, I just get so contradicting back and forth when it comes to the Final Four and the Elite Eight.
Yeah,
Sweet 16, okay, I'm not going to look back. I'm just going to leave it. But then that's when I get all the decisions are like, So
I've gotten to the point with brackets that we got enough problems trying to pick winners in the first round. Now we're trying to pick winners in the fourth and fifth rounds. That it's just like, I don't know. Like, I'm going to make predictions, but you get to that point to say, well, I think Texas Tech is going to beat Gonzaga a few rounds from now. Let's make sure these teams get out of the first few rounds before we get to that point. Do you run into
this problem where I just will look at the matchups and the stats, everything for just over and over and over, where I look at it too much that I overanalyze, and then it makes it so I can't come to a decision because I just look at it too much. Whereas if you looked at it, less and you only see bits and bits, you can come to your decision easier. Do you think that you overanalyze?
Oh, we always overanalyze. Oh, definitely. Like, if it was that simple, just say, oh, well, but even if you pick them, even if you just said I'm going to take the higher seeds, that doesn't work because there's going to be lower seeds are going to win.
But that's what looking at everything led me to. So then I'm like, okay, no, I have to find some upsets.
That's the problem is that you're trying to find, okay, who's going to be a 13 or like realistically, there's going to be no 15 or 16s winning. Like realistically, you pass on those. So you look at because even 11s at this point are not upsets. They're not. Like Virginia Tech could beat Texas. That's not crazy. But you look at, I think it's more when it's a mid-major versus a high-name team. If you say Yale is playing Purdue, all right, is that going to be the upset? Is Akron going to beat UCLA? Is that going to be an upset? Like, I'm not taking Cal State Fullerton to beat Duke. Like, that's just not happening. I'm not going to that point because that's a little crazy. Could they beat them? I mean, I guess I really haven't seen much of Cal State Fullerton, but you look at some of the other teams like New Mexico State against UConn. New Mexico State has been a big name as far as a mid-major, but UConn laying 7 kind of tells me some of UConn will knock them out. Like Longwood. What do we know about Longwood?
Did you know that last year someone actually got a perfect bracket?
No way.
Yes. It's Chris Jacobson, a dentist from Lehigh, beat more than 14 million other people, walked away with the winning spot in ESPN's 2021 Tournament Challenge.
Wait.
Said that there was a little bit of strategy, but mostly luck when he filled out nearly perfect.
Okay. So I was like, no way. Like, that's why Warren Buffett offered
the numbers. I think it was like 9 trillionth or something like that, or some kind of number that doesn't even exist. That's what chances are.
That's why I don't blame all these gazillionaires for offering that kind of money because you're not going to like nobody can pick. So it's 63 games. You take out the first 4 games, just the normal, field of 64. 63 games, 63-0, even straight up, impossible.
That
not happening.
It's so much easier to win the lottery.
Yeah,
it's easier to get struck by lightning. Like,
well, lottery else you're picking 6 numbers. I get out of like 50 something, but like you're picking 63. So you have to hope that you get through the first 2 rounds, get through the Sweet 16, and then continue and have all those matchups work in your favor. No.
So why does everybody get so excited? You know what I mean? Like, why do we get like obsessed over this one? There's literally virtually no shot we're gonna get it.
You want to know why? I can do it. I can do it. I know I can do it.
I think it's more of like
You
beating
can't.
like your friends and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's the bragging rights, like, oh, you finished last, I finished first. That's where I won my family pool in 2020 or 2019. So
I think I've won the pool twice, and that's it. And at other times, you're just like, oh, after one day. That's actually after one day, after like one session, you're like, oh, forget it, I'm done. It's all shot to hell.
yeah,
So.
I mean, but like it was very, very close. So it all came down to that last game. Fortunately, I didn't tie with anyone about who had like the actual winner, but yeah.
Well, it's a new year.
Could be my
so
year. Could be
it's
my
a new
year again.
So we can
I've
do
never
it.
won back-to-back years.
No, I got a problem trying to win. No, I'm trying to win one of them. Got about trying to win back to back. I just want to win one year and be done. You know, last time I won was last time I won. It was like 05, I think. It was when was that it? I think it was when Illinois played in the national championship against North Carolina. That was the last time. Bruce Weber, long time ago.
Yeah, a lot of times, like at least in my family, like at least like a married couple will do one bracket, so then that like wipes out one person, or you'll have people who like do it based off of colors or something. Usually it's down to me and my uncles. So
however you got to do it, you got to do it, you know. However it's got to be. You know, nobody's ever going to say in the end. Nobody's ever going to say in the end, you know, if you win, oh, how'd you pick them? Whatever, it doesn't matter. I picked the winners. Who cares?
I know. And my family I think that's why it's easy to beat him, because like I'll fade Ohio State, but everyone votes on fandom a lot. Like I have 2 cousins that went to Kentucky, and they'll always pick Wildcats. So, and then my dad and his brothers are from Indiana, so they'll try to lean on Indy, but you got to fade the fandom sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah. So
even if you get slack for it by Jim Root, but it's fine.
Whatever, it's all right. That's what you got to do. So you got to take it and just hope you got winners. So that's the case. So all right, Steph. So we'll talk again on Thursday, and Thursday we'll be on pretty much in the first 15 minutes. The Michigan game doesn't start till 12:15. So
brackets will have to be in by then, though. We'll have to have had our decisions made. So
yeah, so by 12:15, we have a 15-minute window where we can talk about this before the games actually start. So, all right, Stephanie. So we'll talk to you Thursday, and our thanks to Kyle Hunter also for joining us on the show today. I am Kevin Rogers. We'll talk to you again tomorrow at noon Eastern, right here on the Daily Insider. And as always, best of luck with your bets.